Great stuff. Hello. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in again on another live stream. And we are joined tonight by Andrew Whitfield, DA Member of Parliament and sitting member on the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee of Policing. So Andrew is one of our go-to people, if not our go-to guy, as the firearm-owning community. He also reads this publication, which I just discovered occasionally. To be honest, I think Andrew's figured out I'm a bit of an AK-47s for everyone person, whereas he's eminently more reasonable. And we've had a really nice offline chat already, so we're just going to jump straight in. And Andrew, two of the things we were discussing right now, Firearms Control Act Amendment Bill and the amnesty and how the two relates and your position on it, which unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm making you rewind because you were getting into some really decent points there. I'm just going to let you have the floor right now.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Gideon. And it's great to be with Paratus this evening and with you. And thanks for doing what you do to advocate for the rights of gun owners, which I think is a really important issue all over the world, and not just in South Africa, but obviously with our crime rate, it's incredibly topical. And there's been a lot of stuff said by the minister about, gun ownership and all sorts of things. And I think there's a lot of anxiety. So just to kick off, I mean, last year the DA opposed the firearms amnesty for no other reason other than we believed that the process was procedurally flawed. There was a whole lot of confusion from SAPS and the minister about parliamentary procedure, when the firearms amnesty was to be gazetted, and ultimately when it was, the date had to be changed on the notice. So there was unnecessary confusion. And a lot of the confusion also came in where gun owners were very reticent to hand in their firearms at police stations. And our appeal at the time to the committee was, let's see how this court case plays out between Gun Owners South Africa and the Minister of Police. We had information that the minister would appeal, and obviously you know that he has, and hopefully we'll receive judgment in the next week or two. I'm waiting with bated breath to see what the outcome of that is, and I know a lot of you and your viewers are. And the reason we said let's just see what the outcome of that case was is because it would remove a lot of uncertainty around whether people wanted to pursue their rights in terms of amnesty. So somebody may very well want to take advantage of the amnesty, but not want to hand their firearm over. And I don't think that that's an unreasonable issue. I think we're dealing in a society at the moment, just to put a general point on it, Gideon, where it feels like law-abiding South Africans are being increasingly criminalized. And I mean, obviously there are incredibly irresponsible gun owners. There are criminals with guns. Those guns are not licensed. There's a place perhaps for amnesty, and there's a place for gun regulation. But there cannot be a place where law-abiding South Africans, who in my view have a right to own a firearm, are criminalized by a system that is very anti-gun ownership. And it's become clear. The minister has made undeniable, crazy comments about, he would prefer a society where there are no guns as long as that doesn't apply to him, his bodyguards, or his colleagues in the ANC. I'm sure without a doubt that he knows many people in the ANC with firearms for self-defense, not for sporting reasons. So there's a lot of hypocrisy, unfortunately too much control by the state, and a lot of interest in the ownership and the rights of citizens. And I think it's something to be concerned about. So we are watching it with a keen eye, and know the amendment bill, the Firearms Control Act Amendment Bill, has not been brought to the committee. And so, I've heard rumors, but I don't like to deal in rumors, rather with the facts. And until we see it, we can't really speculate. But I have a feeling, based on what the minister said, that there will be that there may be some really worrying elements in that bill.
It would be par for the course. To be honest, I would be surprised if the previous one, they tried removing self-defense as a section you could license a firearm under completely, and they came down quite hard on their propositions on curtailing what sport shooters could and could not own. So it would almost be a surprise to me if they didn't double down and try that again, as unworkable as it is. And the interesting thing about it is the Firearms Control Act of 2000 is actually designed to have a massive e-connectivity component to it. A lot of it's supposed to happen online and automatic. What we're seeing with its implementation, obviously, is a lot of duplication of paperwork, which makes it not only inefficient, but also open to corruption and all this sort of stuff. Now, as much as I'd like not to be subjected to a registry or licensing system at all, there was a lot of arguments made for a concept of license the person as an individual, as you would license someone with a driver's license, and then simply put their firearms on a registry. And you would have to run this entire thing online. It would have your profile on it. It would know whether or not you're a dedicated sports person, dedicated hunter, or neither of the two, and just an ordinary gun owner that did not, comply with those specific sections. That is something that would make infinitely more sense to me, because you'd have the exact same outcome ultimately. And the thing is that you're encouraging competent and responsible firearm ownership. You have the registry, but you don't have any of this arbitrary nonsense. I don't know if that's an angle that's really been proposed to the DA or anyone else in the portfolio committee by anyone yet, or if you've been confronted with this before.
No, but I mean, I think it's a great proposal, and I mean, it's something I will definitely take note of. The important thing as well is that I'm really open to suggestions from you, from GOSA, from wing shooters, from whoever, any club, society, any interest group that wants to make any input. I will obviously I'll share my contact details with you. They are available online. And I think it's important that we don't shut down the discussion about how we can improve the system, with the interest at the center of that being that we preserve the rights of gun owners. And so I think it's an excellent idea. I remember applying. So I'm a gun owner. You know that. I think your viewers do. And I mean, I own a very special firearm that's really a collector's piece, and I don't get to use it very often. And when I do, it's for wing shooting. And for clays on a limited basis. But I've grown up around guns. I've been taught how to be responsible. I've been taught the massive responsibility that comes with owning a firearm, and I think we do. You and I both understand that it's a huge responsibility. I think that going through the competency assessments and everything, and jumping through hoops and knowing what the process entails. I think it took me 3 years before I got my license after submitting everything to my DFO. Now, that's an extraordinary long wait. I do know a lot of people have waited that amount of time. But I think what was important in that, I had to get testimonials from, close family members. I don't think I went as far as to say psychiatrists or anything, but I think that there's an important vetting process that needs to take place. And I think if we move towards, is this person a responsible citizen? Do they possess the necessary skills and competencies? And are they going to be safe with a firearm? I think that's important. I do. And if there's a system that we can do that and make use of that sort of angle, I'd be for that. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, the great thing is we do already have a fair amount of literature on this, so I will send it to you about how a proposed system of a personal license and a firearm registry would then work, because I don't think, look, it's probably going to be a very hard sell in the committee to some of your counterparts who may not be quite as open to this type of almost freedom or want an efficient system. And unfortunately, my own personal experience as an outsider with the Portfolio Committee on Policing is that there's a lot of obstructive politics, unfortunately, that does happen. And I don't know if that is, after all, the nature of politics in general, but you probably face some serious challenges with not just within the committee, but within the realm of Parliament itself. How would you say the atmosphere is? Because ultimately, Tina Hubbard-Peterson is your chairperson of this committee, but her relationship with Bheki Cele may not be a given either, in the sense of there's a lot of internal dynamic within the ANC too.
Yeah, so we had a really interesting start to the 6th Parliament after the elections last year. It's a fascinating place, and I know a lot of people don't take Parliament very seriously because of what they see on TV, but it really is an institution to take seriously as an interest group or just as an ordinary citizen, to really understand how it works and what goes on, and to hold members of Parliament as accountable as you possibly can. But what was really interesting for me was when the amnesty was first tabled as a discussion in the committee, the ANC was opposed to it for very much the same reasons that I was opposed to it. And that was because there was so much in the air with the Firearms Control Act or the Amendment Bill, with the court case, the High Court, the interdict that was granted to GOSA. And we hadn't had sufficient time to process any of that information. So there was a tremendously open-minded approach to this, which I thought was so encouraging. And the wind shifted so quickly, and it happened, sort of took me off guard completely. And it became very clear that, to me, my opinion is that that instructions were issued and ANC MPs had to fall in line. So when that happens, the power of a portfolio committee is completely nullified. It effectively becomes a rubber stamp for the executive. And that is what I said in a speech, which I'll happily share with you. I mean, in my declaration on the amnesty at the end of last year, I said we cannot be a rubber stamp for the executive. The executive has a particular duty and responsibility, and then Parliament has the oversight responsibility. And when Parliament doesn't take its power seriously, it transfers that power to the executive. And if we look at Becky Taylor and his comments about gun ownership, you can start to get a sense of what the climate in the committee really is, and obviously they've got the numbers, and so we do try, we engage as much as possible, and I thought we were making progress on the firearm issue, but there is, as much as there's a gun ownership lobby, there's a guns free lobby, right? So we get bombarded with emails from both camps, and that's why I say it's really important that people speak up and make sure that they contact their members of parliament and have their voices heard, because it's a contest of ideas, and at the moment it appears that the minister's ideas are winning, and that's a real concern for all of us.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I always try to, on my channel, on my page, GOSA itself doing as well, is to try and encourage people to take the time to contact their representatives, whomever they may be, and ensure that they are informed of what the mood on the ground, the temperature in the room is with regards to the people who own guns and the gun owners of the country. And it's great. An organization like GOSA can go and lobby. I mean, we've got the membership base behind us, but there's a lot of stuff that you as an organization or as an individual can't do on behalf of others. And I think I'll remember to try and encourage people more often that they need to take ownership of their own responsibilities and rights as citizens. And if that can make your job any easier, and if it can make your fight any easier, then certainly I think there's a huge amount of scope to coordinate communication with you. And I'd also like to invite you to a shooting range at some time when life is not entirely insanely nuts and things have normalized a bit, Andrew, if you're open for that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful offer. I'd be very happy to do that. I can't say I've spent a huge amount of time on ranges, more out in the field, and I think it's for some people it's a strange irony, but it brings me closer to nature, actually, which is for some people a contradiction, but for me it's how I've grown up with in and around firearms, and friends and family who've owned firearms, and not one of them have ever done anything wrong with them, or and so they are also very personally affected by our discussion this evening and the things that are happening around gun ownership. They'd be very, very happy to see me in a firing range. I can't say I'll hit the bullseye, but I'll do my best.
Well, no, that's fine. I managed to have your predecessor Zach Mbele on the committee. I managed to get him out on more than one occasion, so we'll definitely arrange the same for you. And it would be an absolute pleasure. And Andrew, I know you've got a busy schedule, and you are a father to a young infant, so you've got your work cut out for you tonight. So this is not going to be a usual long live stream, guys. But I just want to say thank you to the audience for tuning in. And if there any sort of closing commentary from your side, Andrew, that you think would be relevant or important as sort of closing thoughts.
Yeah, I think that one of the key things, and we've raised it, and I know that you have raised it before, is that people must stand up and be counted and do what they can to have their voices heard. I think what you meant, what you said earlier about if it'll make a difference, well, it'll certainly make my job more meaningful. I don't know who to contact out there. I mean, obviously there's GOSA and various other institutions and organizations that represent individuals, but I really want, in order for our democracy to work, for people to understand that that we work for them, and I think that is something that is getting lost in the system. That we are public representatives. We represent the public, and whether you voted for me or not, I have a duty to represent you. And feel free to to reach out and to contact me. And as I said, I'll get you my contact details. And I know I've had some tremendous conversations with some of your members and people who are actively involved in gun ownership issues. I've spoken to some very smart advocates and attorneys, and you guys have really got and built a really strong community. And so I want to say thank you to you and to everybody who's standing up to be counted on this issue, and to say that we have a duty to also demonstrate that we are not, that all gun owners are not criminals. And in fact, that we are in fact responsible members of society, and we happen to live in an incredibly violent society where many South Africans of all colors carry firearms for self-defense. I don't, but I know that many do, and they simply wouldn't be able to go about their lives the way they do without them. And I know they feel very passionately and strongly about it. And so I don't want people to be confused about whether this issue has a race. It certainly doesn't. And I think that's a really important point I wanted to make this evening. Many South Africans from all walks of life feel very strongly about this. And I know that because they do contact me. So thanks very much for the opportunity. It's really great to chat to you. And I hope we'll have another opportunity in the future.
Absolutely. I think when things calm down a bit, definitely we'd love to have you on again, Andrew. And that was a really excellent and pertinent, I think, closing statement. And I will gladly make your details available to my audience and my readership if you want me to do that. I will get them in comms with you, and we will coordinate a bit better and make sure that we give you what you need to hopefully push the issue a bit harder. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. And we'll definitely talk again soon. And so from myself and Andrew, sorry guys, it's a bit shorter tonight than it usually is, but you already had me today. So you can't overdose, and you'll see me tomorrow morning on Germ's show again at 9 a.m. So Andrew, audience, everyone, thank you for joining us. Have a lucky evening, and goodbye.